Well, my name's Sean, and I'm with the Small Business Development Center program at the University of La Verne. I have the awesome opportunity to work with some great folks helping small businesses either start, grow, expand through training and consulting. And we work with a lot of partners in the community to help accomplish that mission. Hire out, or do I do it myself? And there's really pros and cons to both approaches, but I'd say it really boils down to the big three T's, or the three T's I always say: time, talent, treasure. So a lot of times if you're looking to hire it out, you might not have the talent. Not to say you can't acquire it by learning, but the two big ones is time and treasure. Are you willing, which is more important to you? Is it your money or is it your time? And depending on the situation, it could vary from client to client. Well, when it comes to time, I think we all know, time is precious. Whether it's my kids asking me desperately for 5 more minutes, Dad, before dinner as they're playing their video games, or business owners who pay for executive coaches to help them gain, or regain, I should say, an hour of their day each day by using time management techniques. Time is oftentimes more valuable than money, I should say, in my opinion. But I'd say you got to ask yourself, how much time would it take you to do it yourself versus hiring it out? And if you're trying to do something that's time sensitive or needs to be done within a certain time frame or deadline, you got to be real with yourself about your available time to get it done. Like, I think it's Franklin Covey's 4 quadrants, where you've got important and urgent. Is this in that quadrant? Whereas this is something that might take a little longer in terms of duration from once it gets started. Is this something that has a definitive start and end date, like a remodel project for your business? Or is this something that will continue for an indefinite amount of time, like marketing or bookkeeping? Those are 2 of the major ones we get a lot of, like DIY or hired out. But also to throw into the mix would be like the disruption to your business while you're working on the project, if you choose to do it yourself or hire it out. For example, I just say, my wife and I, we were recently doing our floors in our house, and we weighed the decision, do we do this ourselves or do we hire it out? Because it wasn't too terribly difficult, but we ultimately decided to hire it out because of the duration of the project. This would really disrupt our daily lives, because we're talking about doing like the kitchen, the living room, etc. So as it relates to doing it yourself or hiring out, what disruption could this cause to your business? That's really important to kind of weigh in as well. And also remembering, just hiring it out doesn't mean that you save all your time. You're not just buying your time back by hiring a professional to do it right, because you also have to invest your time into finding the right person to do. And as a project manager, whenever you delegate a task out, you always have to provide the resources for them to do their job, and then to follow up to make sure it was done correctly. Because like my mother always told me, Sean, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, you will never have time to do it right the second time. So, just bite the bullet, be honest with yourself about time, the urgency and importance to what you're trying to accomplish and helping grow your business. Time is a very important consideration when you're making that decision. Do I hire it out or do I do it myself? The talent factor, I'd say, I'm a big believer in the phrase or the saying, where there's a will, there's a way. But on the flip side, where there is no will, there is no way. And by that, I mean, you have to be honest with yourself and the person in the mirror about your willingness to learn what it will take to do it yourself. Nowadays, there's a lot of resources out there where you can learn just about anything on the web, like YouTube. I love it, right? And actually, one of my favorite resources for small businesses that are looking to do it themselves is LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn Learning is usually about $30 a month to, if you wanted your own private kind of account to it. But I would check with your local library, because a lot of times they have their own free access. With a library card, you can get access to it. And you learn all sorts of things, from QuickBooks for your accounting to Facebook ads for your digital marketing, and the list goes on. It's a great resource. And even if you choose to hire it out, I always say it's a good idea just to try it yourself, because it'll give you a better idea of when you're working with somebody as you're hiring it out, to better use the jargon or better articulate what you're trying to accomplish, and hopefully lead to a better result even if you do hire it out. To always get in there and try it yourself, so you know kind of what you're asking for. So when it comes to the treasure factor, I'd say this is usually probably the most intimidating part of making the decision, because oftentimes you don't know how much it's going to cost, and what is a reasonable price for what you're trying to do. And it also involves approaching and talking to people that you don't know. And I'm an introvert a little bit myself, and even being an extrovert, it's hard picking up the phone or reaching out to people and talking to folks about what you're trying to accomplish. But I'd say three things here. Number one, talk to your professional network for referrals, and of course, search online. Talk to your banker, your local chamber of commerce, other business owners you may be neighbors with, and even if you're part of an industry association. Hey, do you have a referral for this? Or maybe it's the service you're looking for. You could check for that particular industry association for someone who's like close to you. But it's a good place to start, because we get that a lot from clients. Is like, where do I get these referrals? And it really kind of boils down to your network. But you got to pick up the phone, you got to email, you got to ask, you got to look online. But the most important thing I'd say here is write it down and be specific in terms of what you want. A problem well defined is half solved, I always say. And this will show even the person you're talking to that you've thought this through and you're serious about your project. Because, well, in order to evaluate, vendor to vendor, because that would be my third thing, is to, ask for quotes. You need to ask the same people the same questions so you can effectively evaluate one against the other. And I always say do three, because with one quote, you have an idea of how much the project might cost. With two quotes, you kind of have a range, but only until you do three quotes for what you're trying to accomplish do you really know reasonableness, if you will, for the project. And weighing that into your decision, do I do this myself or do I hire it out based on that? Because your treasure will be used to finance it. And if you don't have the money, you're going to need to save or find, a way to come up with it. And that will be really important into making the decision to either part with your treasure or to, invest your time into building out your talent to do it yourself and taking that gamble on yourself. But that's kind of the treasure factor. And a lot of times people go there first, but those are the things I would throw out for consideration. I would just say, be real with yourself about your time, your talent, and your treasure, because, well, that's the number one rule of entrepreneurship. Do not lie to thyself, or be real with yourself. But also write it down and be specific about what you're trying to do. Because I had a friend one time, or a colleague, a close colleague I worked with. I approached him for a project because I knew I had reached my talent to hire or to do it myself. And I was going to him for advice, and I had some money, I wanted to pay him, and he said, well, write it down, Sean. And I was like, come on, man, I was going to pay you. Well, when he told me that, it really gave me the exercise to write it down. And then I really looked at what I was trying to accomplish. There's something that happens when you write it down, the left brain, right brain, whatever that is. But it was a really big take home for me. And then, of course, the three quotes. You gotta get out there and talk to different people. And I know it takes time and it's not easy. You just wish you could just, cut right to the end and get the best consultant or accountant or bookkeeper or marketing person, right out of the first gates, first try. But it doesn't happen that way. We all know that. You gotta get out there and mix and mingle and find someone who you can work well with, because what works well for me might not work well for you. So you gotta talk to people. Sometimes what helps me is creating a list of pros and cons. Of course, you have your questions that you ask folks as you're kind of talking about your project and learning about what they can offer you and the cost. But I'll take notes as I'm doing the job walk or I'm doing the interview, because there's a lot of things that are in between those questions where they might give you recommendations that you didn't think of. Their honesty comes through, all different sorts of things. And then ultimately having someone you can talk to evaluate that analysis, going, I like this person because they said this, or I like the other company because they do Y. Because you're never going to get everything all in one package. And it's up to you to kind of figure out, based on what's available, again, at least having three, which decision is best for you at this time based on the information you've got. So those would be my tips, but be real with yourself, write it down, and get three quotes. So the top ones. It's a tough decision. Any decision in business is tough because obviously there's an opportunity cost. As the saying goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And this is where it comes down to what's important to you. And no one can answer that other than you. So the only thing I would add is, take your time, do it right. And if you need help managing the growth of your business, of course, that's where the Small Business Development Center comes in. We've got free one-on-one consulting that we provide to help you make, help you navigate some of these tough or important business decisions, and kind of play devil's advocate for you, and help work through those decisions with you.